Second.
Call the meeting to order. Please stand for the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the clerk call roll, please?
Counselor Elliott?
Here.
Counselor Fisher?
Here.
Counselor Furlow?
Here.
Counselor Grizzle? Here. And Counselor Rieskamp?
Here.
Counselor Bolin is absent today.
Consent calendars. The agenda is the only item on the consent calendar. Any changes or additions? Okay, seeing none, I have a motion to move to approve.
Move to approve the agenda.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the consent calendar in today's agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposed? The consent calendar passes. At this point, we have public comments. And is there anyone that would like to sign in and speak?
Yeah, what I missed.
We're just starting.
The flag salute, that's what you missed. You can do it now.
You missed roll call.
Are we still on the 5-minute law?
Yes, we are.
If
I'll have
that counts, I'd like to say how much I like the noon sessions that I actually get to come.
Came prepared.
So timer when you're ready.
Yeah. And your name, just for those that don't know.
Wyatt King
Yeah.
from RKI.
Okay.
I am here to make sure that Lebanon makes the best decision we can to protect our citizens and ensure our prosperity by establishing a tax on the growth and sale of all members of the cannabis genus. This is not a debate on the benefits and risks of marijuana. Legalization is coming to us, whether we support it or not. But we do have an opportunity before us to benefit from and control this coming tide of legalization, and we should act on it. The demonstrably benign risks of marijuana compared to those more comfortable and familiar risks of alcohol and tobacco are no reason to fear this coming tide. And a tax on the growth and sale of all plants from the cannabis genus will give us a rudder and a fueled motor for steering Lebanon onto the proper course. A moratorium will not last. Worse, it will bar us from our rightful share of the state's new funds. But worst of all, a moratorium will allow and foster a continued black market presence, leaving us in the hands of unregulated dealers who might sell to children and will definitely offer far more dangerous drugs to our citizens. Accepting and taxing does the opposite, pushing out drug dealers and allowing only the most well-run and professional companies. This tax on all members of the cannabis genus will also give us our own regulation to wield as a scythe and cut down any marijuana businesses harming our town, allowing us to monitor and control them regardless of the state, as well as providing additional revenue for our police to fight legalization's abuse. This is why I urge the City Council to adopt two measures: a 3% tax on all growth of cannabis plants in Lebanon, and a 3% tax on all sales from the cannabis genus in Lebanon. Measure 91 does not specify what to do with existing taxes, so an existing tax can be held up in court. Further specifying all cannabis plants increases our chances by including marijuana in an umbrella of a wider tax. And finally, Measure 91 does not specify growth of marijuana. Splitting up this resolution into two sales and growth taxes increases the chances of inhibiting at least the growth of marijuana in our city limits, helping to keep Lebanon better protected and more prosperous. And it's not like it's going to hurt us if they do throw it out. Please adopt these two taxes on the growth and sale of all members of the cannabis genus and give Lebanon the rudder we need to control the inevitable tide of legalization. Thank you.
Thank you, Wyatt. Sure.
Wyatt, since we have time, why do you, I don't know if you've read the proposed ordinance, why do you propose both a 3% on the growth and 3% on the sale instead of just having a sales tax?
Because the Measure 91, Section 42 says the production, the processing, the sales. It doesn't specifically measure growth. And I feel that specifically including growth as one of our taxes helps us at least get that one in.
Okay. Any other questions? Thanks, Wyatt.
Thank you, White.
That was legit.
I would ask if there's any other comments from the audience, but I don't see any. So we will move on to the regular session. Number 1, the proposed tax for the sale of marijuana. Trey Kennedy, City Attorney.
Well, good introduction. Thank you, Wyatt. The only difference, we talked about this very recently, the only difference, and I thank Wyatt for his comments, the only difference is that what we're proposing is simply a 10% sales tax on the sale of marijuana, and that pretty much, excuse me, and I think that's basically for simplicity. I mean, it's a fairly simple, it would require anybody who sells it in Lebanon, and it's easier for bookkeeping, it's easier to keep track, audit, and all that kind of stuff for the city. I'm not sure. Maybe the state would have a program that they potentially could tax and measure the growth, but I'm not sure that's something that the city wants to get into.
I don't understand the concept of taxing growth. I mean, because you grow it, right? And the moment that you sell it, that's when it's taxed. So I don't understand the difference, the distinction between growth and tax.
Well,
I'm not sure I do either.
Well, and then you got to, if you have people growing it, they may not be the people selling it retail. They're going to sell it to someone who then sells it retail.
But at the selling point, if we're already capturing the selling point, I don't understand the distinction between in growth.
I think that the effort necessary to monitor the growth would cause an inordinate amount of staffing and an extra work, whereas the mechanism is already in place for a sales tax, and that basically can be done through a desk audit of the paperwork without a lot of field work to supervise and investigate.
Oh, let Frank do it.
Music going on in the background.
Thank you.
Yeah, let Frank handle it.
Well, for a point of clarification then, if a grower sells umpteen pounds, it's taxed at that sale, and then when it hits the store or wherever it goes for the retail, it would be taxed again because it was being bought and sold again. Is that true?
Well, I think that's the concept. But, I mean, you mean under this one?
Yeah.
Not under this. No, this would only be the sale basically to the public from a place that is licensed to sell marijuana in the city.
But the sale from the grower to the supplier, the middleman, is not taxed.
Not by the city. I'm not sure what the state law
Is that the distinction? Can I ask you that? Is that the distinction then from, because as the law is written, or is your understanding, can you clarify that for me?
They would just all go out of the city limits to make that sale.
Why don't you come back up, Wyatt?
Sorry.
It's fine, because I actually wanted to talk again, so thank you for calling me back up.
Keep it brief, Wyatt.
I will. But I think that not only could we tax on the sale from the grower to the retailer, but I think that there's already a pretty established way to tax the growth. I mean, people are able to get crop insurance by saying, this is how much we expect to get, we'd like to insure it for this amount, and then they're audited at the end if the insuring company thinks that there's any kind of big discrepancy. We could easily go, okay, this is the market value of, I don't know, some strain or whatever, we'll say blueberry kush for all purposes. You're supposed to get $5,000 from selling this, we're going to tax that $5,000 at 3%. And like I said, there's already a thriving crop insurance industry that makes their entire business on being able to predict what the future value of a farmer's crop will be. So I do think there is a way to tax it without a lot of logistics, without a lot of extra regulation and people having to do stuff, but that will still keep less professional growers out of our town.
Or from reporting, whatever. Because it does sound a little complicated to my little pea brain, and it does sound really administratively almost impossible at that level. And I would also say that at this point today, we are at the 0 hour of kind of action to get something on the books. So you know, I appreciate the thought. I don't think I would change what we have to include that at this point. I just don't know how we would do it. That's my little input.
Okay, thank you.
And so before you is the ordinance that would establish the right to tax. If you're very impressed with the way it's laid out and the language and the way it's set forth, I take full credit. If you don't like it, then recognize that it was taken almost verbatim from the Roseburg statute.
Is it Ashland or?
Oh, maybe it was Ashland, yeah, I think it was Ashland.
Ashland is the
Maybe it was
one
Ashland.
that says they will
Right.
take this to court if Oregon
Right.
precludes them from collecting. Good.
So that's about all I have if there's no questions.
In,
And having been absent, how did we come up with the percentage, Trey?
The 10% basically was what was discussed at a League of Oregon Cities meeting of city attorneys. It's not a magic number.
No, one of the Bobs wanted 90.
Yeah, I think Bob and I were looking
You
at
guys
90 to 100.
I think both the Bobs were at 90.
Yeah,
I mean, you were 90 and I said 100.
I had 90.
The way Trey has put this together, or Ashland, or whoever put it together, the rate is actually set by a resolution, which is going to follow, if you take action on this ordinance,
Right.
the next item is the resolution, and what that allows you to do after the fact is adjust those rates, both for medical marijuana and recreational marijuana. So we're not married to any particular rate at this point. Trey's got it set at 0 for medical and 10 for recreational, but we can revisit it again.
If we ever even need to. I mean,
If we need, yeah.
chances are, if it gets challenged in court and, you know, it can just sit dead on our books forever.
Yeah, there's 2 hurdles here. It's got to pass the voters, and then if there's any legal challenge, it's got to pass that.
Yeah.
And my interest in setting the rate is to make sure that, you know, and following up on the conversation that we had last time, to make sure that the efforts to respond to the additional use are covered, you know, through the police department, and that we have, we don't have an administrative burden placed upon the staff for yet one more thing to do without the ability to staff up for that response, to review the books and whatever else. So at some particular point in time, I'd like to have, you know, a down and dirty cost analysis to make sure that we weren't running behind in covering our expenses.
I would submit that it is possible, I know I'm going to get some Bob disagreement here, but it is possible that the legalization of marijuana will actually relieve a little bit of burden, because I think some of what you do is enforcing current law, and once you're not enforcing that, beyond, you know, I'm not advocating everyone go out and smoke dope. There's just not a huge amount of dangerous stoners. They're highly unmotivated, very sedentary, and so I'm just saying it is possible that it won't cost, that if we did that analysis afterwards, it wouldn't be a huge burden to the police.
I hate to burst that bubble, but I think you're being a little naive on that, because I think with driving under the influence is going to become greater,
That is
much
going
greater.
to, well, that is possible.
According to the
I
state
think
of
that's gonna be a
Colorado,
big
the
issue.
state of Washington is reduced.
So far.
So either way is possible. I'm just
Yeah.
saying that the analysis, sure, but I'm not 100% convinced that that would be the case.
But I agree with Bob. I think I'm not sure what that cost might be, but we need to have enough there to cover it.
Yeah, and
we can change that down the road.
I had a conversation with Gary and the finance director the other day, and we do get general tax revenue to cover services as well as the fees that the city charges. In this particular case, I don't see a public good, so therefore would not want general tax revenue to underwrite the expense of managing
it.
the system. And I think this system needs to bear its full cost. And we can do that, very simply. I'm not suggesting an onerous cost analysis or that it be done all that frequently. But to benchmark it, every 2 or 3 years, something like that, just to give us some sort of analysis so that before we go into the next budget cycle, we have a chance to adjust that schedule.
Right. And I know we'll be talking about the medical component of it, but I'm not so sure that at least the citizens that give me feedback, they feel it should be taxed in its entirety, medical and recreational.
And at some point, that's a discussion that maybe the council needs to have. At this point, I just left it at 0, and if it comes to the point where the tax is actually going to be able to be collected, then we might want to discuss that, whether that's something the council wants to do.
Well, we can always amend it later, I believe, can't we?
There's another dimension to this I want to make sure everyone understands, and that is that we have a moratorium in place right now. That moratorium would prevent anyone from selling within the city. Our tax is based on licensed sellers in the city.
Yes.
So as long as that moratorium stays in place, or in the event, under Measure 91, if our electorate generates an initiative petition, puts it on the ballot to disallow the selling of marijuana in the city, they can do that, and if it passes, we'll have no sellers in the city. Again, this tax will have no effect. Now, the downside to that is, will people who are using the product become intoxicated or whatever, get behind the wheel, and not drive into Lebanon?
No.
See, so there could be some effects that are going to be uncovered. So, there's a myriad of things we need to consider going forward about a policy that kind of makes sense. Right now, if we pass this, and please, I'm not making any statement about where I think we should be on this.
Oh,
but
go for it.
Just from a policy point of view, just be aware, we have a moratorium in place, which would, in essence, prevent us from taxing in the first place, so.
But we can deal with the moratorium anytime. Put the tax on now, we'll deal with the rest of it as it comes, right?
Well,
It's not
absolutely.
even, none of this is even relevant to us today besides getting something on the books just in case.
It seems to
I
me
think-
like what would happen if I were going to establish a storefront and I was going to get taxed for my product in the city limits of Lebanon, I'd go to Waterloo, Sodaville, and outside the city limits, and that's where I would market my product.
Or one of our unincorporated islands.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
But they're not very motivated to go very far. That's what I'm saying. They'll pay the 10%.
The moratorium expires when?
May 1st, 2015. And I assume we're going to talk about that in a second too, but I assume we're going to have direction from the legislature before then.
Yes.
So.
Well, going back to what you said, if we're going to truly measure cost increases, we would need to know at present, I think you mentioned 20 hours a week, the meeting before approximately, maybe.
It was just a wild.
But part of that is the patrolling of use, not necessarily abuse. And so if that component went away, like you said, then that portion is not something you're looking for anymore. You're looking for abuse, erratic driving, or whatever the indicators would be. So there will no doubt be a decrease in one cost. Now, it might reproportion itself and that suddenly abuse goes up or something like that. But my question is, right now, if you went and looked at your records, could you tell it says marijuana on there, what would be considered sort of the abuse? I mean, in a sense, using it all now is kind of abusive because it's against the law, but you see what I'm saying? Could you tell the difference of how that decreased or not?
I think, as of right now, no, because everything is illegal right now for them to possess, use, even, and, the medical portion, we don't really track necessarily, but as far as determining whether it was abuse, as of right now, it's all abuse right now because it's illegal, but once it becomes legal, I think it's going to open up the door. It might take away the enforcement action of going out and enforcing possession of marijuana, but it's going to open up the door for other issues too. So I think it's going to be interesting, either way you look at it.
So we would be
sense.
basically deal with cumulative hours that just maybe were reapportioned in some way?
Yeah,
Okay.
I believe so, yeah.
Does our state law for public intoxication include marijuana?
That's what I was going to ask.
That was an interesting topic because we were just talking about that this morning. I know we have a city ordinance in place that we can't be possessing alcohol in public and whatnot, and would that include the marijuana? I don't know. So there's a lot of unknown questions that are out there as far as law enforcement's concerned when you're talking about the legalization of marijuana. So there's a lot of questions.
And the state measure does not address intoxication, just allows the usage, the recreational usage of it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And on that, doesn't the state measure have in there that the cities can't collect? Or, I was just curious on what
The state law, and I forget the provision it specifically, but it says this, local government shall not institute a tax, something like that.
42.
Section 42.
Which we wouldn't be going against because it would already be in place.
Right. So we shall
okay,
not
that's what I was trying to
after the law goes into effect.
Okay,
So that's why we're doing it now.
that's what I thought. Okay.
That's going to be the challenge.
Yep. Other questions? Okay, do I have a motion?
Want me to read it?
Yeah, please. Have the city attorney read it.
Ordinance Bill Number 2014-7, Ordinance Number 2855, an ordinance of the City of Lebanon establishing a tax on the sale of marijuana and marijuana-infused products in the City of Lebanon.
Move for approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve ordinance bill number 2014-7. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ordinance passes. Number 2.
And as discussed, Resolution Number 2014-35 sets the rate at 10% for the recreational use of marijuana and a 0% percent on the medical marijuana portion.
I would propose that we have a 10% also on medical.
I was thinking the same thing, and I've had people comment to me.
Yeah, we'll need, and that's fine. You can make a motion to amend the
And we can
resolution.
discuss that again later, because I'm against that. I disagree, and I know that medical marijuana is abused by some, but that it is also very helpful for some people that could not afford to pay additional. And so, I am against that. So I won't hold up this right now, but I would, if we go to implement this, I would again argue for a 0% for medical.
Just so we're procedurally correct on this, what I would like to do then, if there's potentially going to be an amendment to the resolution, the first thing would be for somebody to move to adopt the resolution with a second, and then we'll need a motion to amend with a second.
Okay, I'd move for approval.
Okay, so a resolution, and let me read it real quick. Resolution number 2014-35, a resolution of the City of Lebanon, the Lebanon City Council, establishing tax rates for the sale of marijuana, medical marijuana, and marijuana-infused products in the City of Lebanon. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. And now we can have discussion, and as part of that discussion, there can be a motion to amend.
I would make a motion to amend to add 10% also for medical.
Is there a second?
Can we have some discussion around that?
Sure.
So then, the same taxing procedure would be in place for the sale of marijuana to either party, correct?
Correct.
So it'd be a duplication. So how do we distinguish between medical and the other? They're going to have a card.
Yeah, they'll have a medical marijuana card.
And I think that's going to be part of the problem. It's going to be very difficult, and it's going to become an administrative issue and a challenge issue, too, at the point of sale. So instead of just reviewing all records, the owner would have to maintain 2 sets of books.
And really, the medical card's going to become a moot point if it's approved that everyone can smoke pot.
Yeah, why would you
have
bother?
marijuana? I mean, there really is, medical marijuana is going to essentially almost go away, realistically.
Yeah.
Could. It could
There may be different regulations that are going to apply to recreational versus medical, for as far as for growing regulations and different things. And I don't know that for sure, but there may be differences in the way it's regulated by the state.
If there isn't now, I think there will be.
And I don't think we need to invent the process. I mean, you know, there are far more liberal cities that are going to wade through this stuff before we're ready to. You know, we can look, and that very well may be an issue, that it's just like, well, fine, you know, I'll just get a card and I'll pay 10% less. And, you know, and they may just go away altogether and it'll become a moot issue. So I'm not willing to put a lot of effort into the argument at this point when we don't even know we're going to need to do this. So.
Well, it seems like a weird argument to have when we have a moratorium against it anyways.
I know.
You know.
I'm willing to revisit it another time.
Yeah, I don't think we need to spend a lot of time and energy. Bob, I agree with you, but I think we can come back to that if it's applicable.
Well, we can put it in, you know, I'm willing to vote for 10% across the board right now, and then fight later when there's more, when we know more, because maybe 10% for everything is the right thing to do, and I just don't know. It's just
Not as a matter of policy, but just as a matter of legal concern. The only thing I would hope to avoid would be that if there is a legal challenge to this, and we're the only town, and I'm not sure if there's other towns yet that have tried to impose the tax on medical marijuana or not, I would not like to be drawn into that legal battle because we would be the poster child for the taxation of medical marijuana. But that's my concern.
I know for a fact that there are cities that
Is
have
there? I wasn't
implemented rates for medical marijuana.
Okay.
we could always lower it to 0 if it looked like we were
But even if it's
being
at
painted
0,
as a-
we're still saying that we're going to tax it, or we could tax it, so.
Saying we could tax it.
So whether we
The
choose
stage is
10% or
set.
0, I personally think the 10% makes sense just across the board at this point until we know more.
We still need a second, and then...
You need a second.
I would second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the amendment to move the medical marijuana to 10% also across the board. All those in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
I guess I'll say aye.
On the opposed?
Yeah,
Okay,
but I'm not for sure on this.
okay. The motion passes. We'll do the 10%, and now we need to vote on the actual
Amended,
amendment.
as amended.
Or as amended, Resolution 2014-35.
I actually think I did that wrong, but that's all right.
Do we have to wait for Trey to read it again?
No.
I move to approve the ordinance as amended.
Okay.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve Resolution 2014-35 as amended. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. The resolution passes. Medical marijuana dispensary ban.
This is just a little bit of an update.
It's not anything new to me.
The League of Oregon Cities did get a favorable ruling on a challenge to the current state law with respect to the local government's ability to ban dispensaries. Basically, that was based on state state preemption in the court, saying that it wasn't expressly preempted, therefore the home rule charters of local governments can still place a moratorium or ban the sale of medical marijuana within their cities. Again, there's two issues before that's going to be finalized. One is an appeal on that actual issue, and two would be the meeting of the legislature in a couple months that can clarify that by either clearly saying, yes, we intended to preempt state law on that issue, or they could come back and say, and do nothing, which would essentially say they agree with the court decision that they didn't intend to preempt it. So right now, I wouldn't urge you to do anything other than providing you an update on this issue. We still have till May 1st, 2015, and I am almost certain that we will have some better direction before then, before we would actually have to do anything with respect to the banning the medical marijuana dispensaries. And it'll be most likely, in the event that the recreational marijuana use passes, there'll probably be something that would work those two kind of together. So there's going to be more clarity later, and this was more just to give you an update.
Any questions?
Just for those of you who've been more active in this arena, has anyone heard any discussion in the community about circulating a petition to preclude the sale in Lebanon?
I have not. I've been contacted by a couple of people who were marijuana advocates asking about our moratorium and asking about the ban, but not saying that anything specific was in the works for our city.
I've heard nothing.
I haven't either.
No, I've heard nothing either, Bob, other than they think that marijuana should be taxed just like cigarettes across the board.
Okay. Anything else, Trey? Okay. With that, we will move into executive session, I believe, next, yes? Move into executive session. We'll reconvene into the regular session and city manager evaluation. We've had an opportunity to discuss the evaluation with the city manager. Each of the councilors and myself have filled out forms, went through the process, and the consensus of the council was that the job Gary's doing is a very good job. We're very pleased with his work and his efforts. It's only 6 months in, and he's done a good job. There's still some areas that are hard to evaluate, but overall the council's been pleased. At this point, I'd like to open it up, and any comments that the council would like to make. Robert?
Mayor and Gary, I think that the 6-month evaluation process for both the city and for Gary provide an opportunity to do two things. Number one is to validate the hiring selection process that was taking place some 7 months ago. And from the council's comments and the mayor's comments today, it's quite obvious that that from the city of Lebanon's perspective, this is an excellent fit. There is clearly many outstanding attributes and traits that and skills that Gary has brought to the city. And the second one is for Gary to be able to evaluate based upon the comments from the council and the mayor and interaction with the staff, whether this is a good fit for him. And for the comments that have been shared and his reactions to the comments today, it's obvious that Gary feels comfortable with that fit also. And I propose that we give Gary a vote of confidence and move forward with the council's support for him.
Okay. Would you like to make that a motion?
I move, so move.
Okay.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to give a vote of confidence for City Manager Gary Marks in his 6-month evaluation. Discussion? Any other comments? Okay. With that, we'll take a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Yes?
I just want to say on the record that I'm very pleased to be here. I feel like we've gotten off to a good start. I'm very much looking forward to our future. I think there are a lot of exciting projects and efforts that we're going to be putting ourselves to, and I'm just delighted to be here, and I'm very grateful to the City Council for your review. So thank you.
And we didn't finish the no. I just needed, because I asked for A, I didn't get it. I didn't ask for no on the vote. Okay, we did. Did I?
I'm pretty sure you said opposed and...
Oh, okay.
And
I just want to make sure we're covered.
Nobody's
Was there,
opposed in here.
Bob?
Yeah, I'd just like to say that I think our future in Lebanon is very bright. We've just we've got a building project going out on the east side again, which is the first one in quite some time. I think things are starting to look up, and I'm real pleased that we've got Gary aboard with us to pretty much lead the ship as we go. He's a keeper.
Could I ask a question?
Yes.
Would it break a precedent if we said that we felt free to release what was said in executive session in this case? Is that a bad precedent to set?
It would actually be up to Gary since it's a personnel issue.
What's that?
It would be up to Gary since it's a personnel issue. I don't know if he's comfortable with that.
Yeah, I mean... yeah.
It's a personnel review, so.
I have no objection.
I mean, it sounds like we get some writing done.
Did you
for
have
us.
something to say?
You'll get a better story if you do.
What's that?
You'll get a better story if you do.
Well, that's what I'm thinking.
More comments there.
No, I don't think it sets a precedent. It doesn't mean like every executive session now that we go forward with personnel evaluations have to be public.
Okay. Would we have to take a vote to be able to do that?
You probably should.
Okay. Well,
Okay, I would move that the press could report on what was seen here today in executive session.
Let me...
He's having a heart attack.
Trying to think through this as we're going.
What's that?
And obviously, it would relate to the discussions and not necessarily, I don't think we wanted to start handing out all the performance reviews either.
Correct.
Okay. And if the press is okay with that, I'm okay with that.
This is an easy thing.
okay.
Yeah, as long as
No,
Alex...
your motion is for the press to be able to use the material that they heard during the executive
Oh, I
session.
see.
Yes.
Not the handouts.
Not the handouts, the comments.
The comments that were made.
That illuminate our thoughts.
Right.
I support the motion.
And I would second that motion.
Yeah.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to allow the press to use the comments and discussion that we had during the executive session. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, the motion passes.
As long as Alex doesn't come back to us 5 years from now, you remember that one time you guys...
And one last thing I'd like to say is, as much as I work with Gary, it's been a pleasure. It's been much easier than in the past. It was definitely much easier than not having a city manager, but honestly, he's doing a fantastic job. And I'm very excited about the visioning process, and I think that's a neat thing that he came to us and told us, it's not my vision, it's the community's vision. So it's very exciting, and we're kind of in a neat chapter right now of Lebanon, and it's an exciting time.
And it might be appropriate, did all the council get the note on the meeting, or did it just go to the committee? That the meeting on the 4th, the kickoff meeting?
I think the steering committee is probably aware of that, but what Bob's referring to is that the steering committee will be, the Vision Steering Committee will be meeting on the 4th with the consultant, and the consultant will also be meeting with the department head staff, and then on the 12th, your next council meeting, they will be here to address the kickoff of the Vision project. So it's all starting to happen.
Any items from council? I do have one. Next week, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, our house is going to be haunted. We have singing pumpkins in front, and the public is invited. I've never done Halloween before, so it's going to be interesting, but it'll be fun.
I'm mad.
And lastly, any public comments? There's no one from the public. Any items from the press? Did you have any questions or follow-ups?
You answered what I wanted. I was going to ask.
All right.
Comments, so
Okay. With that, we're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.